Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So today I want to talk about interviewing third-party leasing folks. So I just was on a call recently with some friends who are buying a couple properties, and they were asking my advice about strategy to lease ground floor retail in high-rise multifamily property. Their expertise is the multifamily, not the retail. And I asked them why were they considering doing it themselves versus hiring a brokerage firm. And their response was that they hadn't had luck with brokerage firms in the past, and they haven't been able to find good ones. And I understand that's a frustration for many people out there, but I believe that there are many good third-party brokerage firms out there, and it's incumbent upon us to interview many of them, and then once we hire them, keep them accountable. So I think it's incumbent upon us to, if they're not doing a good job, to terminate them, but making sure that you put expectations in place. First of all, I told them to interview potentially 3 to 5 firms. Drive around the market and see, or look on, the online sources to see who has the commercial listings in the market, who has the most, who has the high profile, and then call their broker and see if they would be interested in pitching for your property, and then setting up interviews. And I would tell the broker that I would want them to bring the person who would actually be working on my asset to the meeting. I don't want the decision maker to come and say, we will assign someone. Whoever they're going to assign, I would want them to come to the meeting. I would give them as much information as possible that I could about the asset within reason. If there are existing retailers there that have sales, that I have their sales of, maybe for the first meeting I would not give the sales. I probably also would not give the rents. I'd want the third-party firm to tell me what they think the rents should be in the market, right? I would want them to do a thorough market study. I would be curious to see when they show up if they have a market study and if it's done by an online source or they actually completed it by relationships that they have in the market. I would ask questions I would ask them to bring their deal sheets, like the person who's assigned to my asset. I would want maybe a deal sheet from them for the last 18 months. So I can see, did they do 2 deals in the last 18 months? Did they do 30 deals? And then I would want to know, I would ask them in the interview, pick out a couple of the deals and then say, tell me, I see you did a Dunkin' Donuts deal. How did that deal come to be? Did the tenant rep broker call off the sign? Do they have a relationship with the tenant rep broker? Did they pursue Dunkin' Donuts and convince Dunkin' Donuts and the tenant rep broker why they should come to the property? I want to find out. It's one thing to say, will you prospect? It's another to get evidence of them prospecting and asking good questions in the interview process, like how did you find this deal? How did this deal come about? I had shared with my friend, those of us who prospect and canvas and cold call, we're very proud of that. And we are not shy to talk about the 13 times we reached out to this particular user and how they finally succumbed to our persuasion. So if that agent prospects, they will be very proud to tell multiple stories of that. So if they have no stories, they don't prospect, right? Asking for them to come with a strategy of how they would anticipate filling the property is important. And by interviewing 3 to 5 firms, you will get ideas from the firms that you don't hire. And that's okay too. We're all in the business to get the business. And those third-party brokers should come full bore with as many ideas as possible to win the account. It's highly likely, many times, brokerages change over the years of ownership. So you may not pick broker B, you might pick broker A, and if A is not successful, you may go back to broker B in 6 months. I would not give a listing for more than 6 months, and during especially the first 30 to 60 days, I would want to have more conversations with them than less. I'm not a believer that we should have an hour call every week going over prospects. I wouldn't mind a 15-minute call every week in the first month. It does take brokerages 3 months to get their arms around an asset before they start having success, 3 months at a minimum. So don't expect anything less than 3 months. But let's see, what other questions? I would want to ask them, what other assets have they filled to capacity in the market? What other assets do they work on? Do they feel that the assets they work on are competitive to the asset that I want them to work on? I would ask them who they thought their competitor was. And if I wasn't interviewing them, I would then maybe add them to the list. And I would say to them, what do their other clients say about them? What are their relationships with the tenant rep brokers? How do they network with the tenant rep brokers? So I would just ask a lot of questions and ask for evidence. So when they say, oh, we like to do broker events, great, give me an example of one that you've done, and did that result in a deal? Yes, we prospect. Great. Give me an example. How often do you prospect? How do you prospect? How do you pick where you prospect? I'd ask them to bring marketing materials of other assets that they are leasing for, because that will show you a lot. I will ask them for specific situations of why did they put these items on specific flyers. You guys have heard me enough to know that I would be speaking of, I have this former salon flyer so that I can drop that off at lash places and barber shops and salons. Then I have the general flyer for my shopping center. Then I have the second gen bank space flyer. It will tell a lot about the psychological or the knowledge of what they're doing and how long they've been doing it, as to what kind of materials they have their company create to aid in their prospecting. As I offered my friend, I can offer you all, if you're interested. We can do a role play of interviewing a potential brokerage firm. If you're interested in that, just reach out. And if you like this podcast, please share it with your friends, subscribe, like it, and send me any questions that you may have in the future. I'm happy to answer all of them on this podcast. If now I own a shopping center, now what? Have a great week.